Good morning, and thank you for joining me on this webinar from TENS, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship. My name is Davey Gerhard, and I'm the Canon for Stewardship and the Executive Director of TENS. It's an honor to be here with you in our first webinar of 2024. Thanks for making time on your Saturday, wherever you are. Here in San Francisco, California, it's a cold, rainy start to our weekend. And I hope that it's nicer where you are. We're going to be presenting from our slides today, and so just to make sure that you have yourself on mute when you're not speaking, that'll keep background noise down. And if you want to come off mute, use the raise hand, and then we'll all be able to see your face and hear your question. That said, I'm going to get us started. Today, we're going to talk about a few things related to how we think about last year's campaign and how we set the stage for next year's campaign. In the cycle, we're always going through this, aren't we? We're always thinking about how do we raise money and how do we keep on our stewardship. If the only time we think about it is panic in September, then we're a little behind the 8 ball. So we want to make sure at TENS that you have some resources that get you through the year so that you can keep stewardship and formation about generosity and abundance on tap in your congregation. So we're going to be talking a little bit about how to analyze and think about last year's campaign. Many of you I know have been through this section before, and I know a couple of you have taken our resources and adapted them to your use. I might be asking you to help us understand what you did with our materials, because that will teach us all something. So we're going to talk about how to evaluate your campaign. We're also going to talk about how to prepare for the next one, so that there are lessons that you learned, there are approaches that you took, there are materials you created, a chance to really see how did they work, how were they received, how did people respond to them. That will help you make sure that next year's campaign is that much better from this year's campaign, and they can always be better. This is something that we learn. And if they're not better, they're different, because we need to switch things up every once in a while and try a new approach. Otherwise, it feels like last year's program. And we don't want last year's program, we want this year's program. So some ways to think through that. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some ongoing things that we can do to keep the conversation alive all year round in stewardship. I learned from someone who's on this call, Charles, that the most important words in fundraising are thank you, thank you, thank you. And I have adopted that, and I believe it. And I think it's important in all ministry, not just our fundraising ministries, that we remember to thank the people who share their time and talent and treasure with our churches. It's so busy in the day-to-day running of a church. Your volunteers may be so efficient at running their program that you forget that they're volunteers, that they're showing up, that they're doing this great work for you. So whenever you have a moment to pause and remember that it's volunteers and it's people sharing their gifts that make our churches so successful, remember to thank them. And remember to put that gratitude into as many ways as you can, into notes, into announcements, into one-on-one conversations. You can't thank people enough. And the work that we do is so important. We need a lot of help to keep people focused and keep people engaged. So gratitude is one of the ways we do it. When we respond to our gratitude, it's usually through generosity. So take a moment before your campaign gets put away to make sure that everyone who worked on your campaign, everyone who shared something at your potluck stewardship dinner, everyone who made a gift or asked people to make gifts, make sure that they get thanked and make them feel special. And celebrate it. Celebrate the end of your campaign. Even now, you're probably preparing your reports going into your annual meetings. I know that's what I'm doing in my congregation. Our annual meeting is in 2 Sundays. And so we're starting to think about how we do that. Make sure that there isn't just acknowledgement of how much we raised, but a real celebration of that. Even if you didn't meet your goal, celebrate the fact that many people contributed. There's lots of work that is to be celebrated. Maybe there's still some work to do, but make sure that it feels positive and joy-filled and exciting, because if people feel like they're starting off the year with, oh, well, we still need more work to do, we're not celebrating yet, it kind of deflates that moment. So celebrate what's been done and keep going. And if you've surpassed your goal, be wild about it. Be really excited about it. Help people understand that your church is going to have a very successful year in ministry. More people are going to be served. More work is going to be done. The gospel is going to be shared widely in the world because people responded so generously and beautifully to the campaign. Even folks who didn't make a gift, I get this question a lot. What do we do with people in our congregation who didn't respond to the pledge campaign? How do we thank them? How do we feel about them when they come to the meeting? And I want to say that people make gifts in all kinds of ways. Yeah, we really do need financial contributions from every member. And we need to acknowledge that sometimes just being present is all people can do. And they need something from us in that moment. It's a pastoral response. And maybe through that welcome, that constant reminder that they're loved and valued, no matter how they engage with your congregation, they will step up to the plate one day and realize that they have some treasure to share as well as their time and their talent. So keep thanking them. Let's talk a little bit about numbers, because we want to, I see there's some questions before I move into the next thing. So let's see. Someone's asked if there are past webinars focused on capital funds. We don't have a webinar on capital funds. Let me put that into the list of things to bring to our board and see if we can get folks there. And I see someone else is trying to get into the meeting and they have a link, but I'm not sure, Elaine, I'm not sure how to help that person right now.
Okay.
Y'all showed up, the link works. So I hope that they can get into. Sorry about that. All right, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about the numbers, because that's where campaigns start and focus, right? I'm going to try and remind us that it's not all about numbers. It's also about members, and it's about our programs and our mission. I will say that many times today, but we all know that campaigns are also about numbers. So how we ask the questions about numbers is what's really important. So let's talk about them in relation to last year's campaign or expectations. Are they up? Are they down? What did we learn? Another good metric is how many pledges were made. How many people made a gift to the campaign this year? And that's really important for us to know, because sometimes the amount goes up, the dollar amount goes up and down, but commitment can go up. And that's not, it's good when we find that there's more commitment, obviously, even if it didn't result in a higher number of gifts, because maybe you had some of your highest givers not able to do it, or something else is going on in the economics of your community. But really knowing how many people pledged or made a commitment is really important as well. Some people don't fill out pledge paperwork. Find a way to include them in the conversation. I know that we have a couple of folks in my congregation who just don't do it. One of them theologically doesn't believe that she should be indebted to any person or any entity. She lives her life in a very intentional way that way. And so she's very generous. She makes a gift to the church, but she won't talk about a promise or a pledge paperwork. You know what? That's fine. We don't need paperwork to make certain that people feel welcome and honored and accept their gift. So if you have some folks in your congregation that you know are regular givers but don't pledge, find a way to make sure that their numbers get reported too, so that they feel included in the success of the campaign, because in fact, they're being great members and donors as well. And so the other thing then, so it's great to know how many people made commitments and then how many increased. So we look at this number always to say, how are people responding to our formation of gratitude and generosity throughout the year? So if people are increasing their giving, it could mean that the economy is booming and they had more to give. But it could also mean that they feel more connected, that they feel they understand their role in stewardship and in mission in a different way. And so maybe some of the formation things that you're doing are really paying off. Do more of it. So we learn something when we see that gifts are trending up and that people are making, and we learn something when they're not too, when they're going down. Trends are important. We'll talk more about trends in a minute. As in now. So when we see that people are decreasing, before we hit the panic button and say, what's going on? Let's ask some intentional questions about it. Let's pull up with your finance committee, perhaps with your pastoral team and your clergy. What's going on in our community that some people are making gifts that are smaller than they made last year? Do we have people transitioning from paid work to retirement assets? Is there an economic calamity in the community that we need to respond to in some way? Is there tension or conflict within our congregation? Episcopalians use their pledge to talk about and voice concerns like that too. So these are data points that impact our numbers, but also they're about the health of our congregation. When we see people plateauing, giving the same gift year after year, that's the most worrying statistic to me, because it could speak to loyalty and commitment, which it does, but it means that, are they paying attention to what's going on? Are they prayerfully considering their gift? Are they rethinking their gift each year? I hope that through our stewardship campaigns, through teaching throughout the year, that we can get people to think about why and what they give. If it results in the same gift because their income hasn't changed and their expenses haven't changed and they have the same ability to give, that's great. But we know in our economy that our expenses and our incomes do change from year to year. So if giving is the same, what's going on there? It's not always a bad thing, but let's ask the question. Because what we don't want is for people to become stagnant or to plateau. And we have a whole webinar series on breaking through pledge plateaus. I see some questions coming in and I really like them. So one of them is, how should we account for those who have moved or died when we're looking at apples to apples measurements? So there's always some movement in our congregations, right? And so I think it's good to report when you're looking at the number of commitment cards or commitments that have been made, to say, we lost some, we gained some, we had some growth and we had some loss. And this is why. Name it. You might not have to name every person in every circumstance, and perhaps it's pastorally sensitive not to do so, but to say, we had some people pass on and we had some people move out of the community. We had some, to name it so that it's not hidden. It doesn't feel like we're sweeping it under the rug. Naming things like that really helps. And it also helps people say, oh yeah, well, I remember Bill, who was a faithful member, and we went to his funeral last year, and he was a great donor. And so of course we're not getting his gift this year. And so we can understand that there's been some movement. When people put those, make those connections, then they can understand why the pledge income or the commitments are what they are. Helping people understand that statistic helps them understand, we're going to see it when we look at that steps model for giving. When we see what other people are giving, and when we see the people at the top start to fall off, then we know maybe it's time for us to move up a level or to think about our giving in another way. So it's really good to have honest information about why people stop giving, if it's pastorally okay to report that. Phoebe writes in that one member said he would increase his pledge by 1% for every new pledge. That's exciting. So a challenge grant. NPR would call that a challenge grant when they're doing their annual solicitations. And I love that. You have a member so dedicated, and they are trying to use their gift to leverage new gifts to increase giving in the congregation. This is good. When we can gamify our stewardship and make it exciting and have something really beautiful and positive be the result of that, this shows commitment, it shows creativity, and it shows a real interest in this congregation taking its growth seriously. So if you have a member, I've asked this question before, usually in capital campaigns, but you can do it in annual giving as well, as Phoebe mentions. When you have a donor, you know they're going to make a really large gift. You could say, would you make this gift and hold back this much and make it as a challenge so that we can inspire others? And if, you'll match 1-to-1 or whatever, it helps people feel, oh, we have some real capacity in our congregation, and they're trying to inspire me to grow my giving. And nonprofits are doing this all over, and our churches can do this without feeling creepy. This is a really beautiful example of leadership. So great questions and great ideas. I love creativity in congregations. This is why we gather together and learn from each other. Let's talk about electronic giving very briefly. I know that many of you have now implemented electronic giving by this point in our stewardship lives. When you implemented it, when people are using it, what's the average gift size? How does that impact your giving? Is it more reliable? Is it less reliable? Know your electronic giving and take it seriously, because it's going to be the increasingly the future of fundraising in our congregations. So our numbers teach us, of course, like practical things, how we did in our campaign, how much money we have to spend. Many finance committees wait as long into December or January as they can before setting the budget for the next year, because they're waiting to see how stewardship results. That's how important our stewardship is in many of our congregations, that, waiting to see how it shakes out and trying to chase down those last gifts is really important for some congregations. So it's important for us to be able to know that information and to project where we're going to be able to go this year. They're also a part, as I said earlier, how are people receiving the mission of your church? Are they on board with it? If you're seeing decreasing giving or flat giving, or people just kind of going through the motions, it's time to ask more serious questions about, what are we doing in the world? Are people resonating with who we are and what we need to be? Maybe it's time to do some of that parish strategic planning work or needs assessment or community work to see where people's passions really lie. Because stagnant or plateaued or decreasing giving could also say to us, oh, people might be a little tired and they're giving out of a sense of loyalty, not out of a sense of passion for the gospel that we're sharing with our world. Kelly asks, what do I mean by electronic giving? Is it just through the website or something else? Electronic giving, yes, it's by making gifts on the website. Also, many congregations are finding ways that people can use their smartphones right in the middle of church to make a gift and connect with an online payment system, so that if people didn't bring, this is particularly important for visitors who may or may not have cash in their wallet that come to visit you. You want them to be able to make a gift when the plate is passed. And it's, people carry less and less cash than they used to. If I come into your congregation, you're not going to get much from me in cash because I don't use it too often. I use my phone, I use my debit card to pay for lots of things, and this is a trend. So electronic giving is all of that. It's also the way, Kelly, that we can do recurring gifts. So some people, they make a gift online and it asks you, would you like to make this gift every month or every 2 weeks or episodically as you pick? And people select that button, and then it just keeps coming out of their account and going right to the church. This is a way some people are making pledges now. So in fact, in my own congregation this year, we had a number of people who didn't turn in pledge forms, and I was like, I know that they're going to make a gift. What's going on? And they said, oh, well, I just tweaked my electronic giving. And then they told me the amount so that we could put it in our tracking sheet. But ultimately they thought it was done because they made their own gift and they hit the button and it was off and running. So electronic giving really can smooth things out and make it easier for people to make gifts. So they're all important numbers, but they don't tell us everything we need to know. A few more things that we should think about when it's about numbers. It's really good to report our statistics, talk about how much we raised, how much we needed, all of the numbers that we've just talked about, but we really need to analyze them as well. So we're going to move from reporting on numbers to looking a little bit at our pledge analysis. How do we look at where people are in their giving and how does it compare with other years? And then have conversations about what those trends tell us and what they mean. I see some Nancy says 1/3 of their commitments were made online in 2023. That's a really big percentage. And that's fantastic news for your congregation. When people give online, as I said, it makes it very easy to make a gift recurring. Also, the online amount of giving, the average online gift is larger than if people have to stop and write a check or think about it and, mail something in. All of those stop, write a check, mail something are moments when people can say, let me rethink that. Maybe that's not what I want to do. Oh, wait, I'm having another thought. And that delays or changes the gift, whereas online giving is very emotional. It's very quick. And so the average gift online tends to be larger than the average gift through a check. That's just what we've learned over years now, a decade of really having good numbers on online giving in congregations and in nonprofits. Average gift size goes up. So it's a great thing for your congregations to do. And good work, Nancy, that 1/3 of your congregation made online commitments in 2023. So let's stop talking about average pledge. You've heard me say it twice in this presentation already because it's so ingrained in our head. Average doesn't work because it is exactly what it says. It just takes that amount and it doesn't consider the tremendous outliers that we have in our campaigns. Super generous donors who make absolutely important gifts, without whom our congregations would have much less to do the ministry that they need. So when we only talk about average gift size, it's usually a smaller amount than what we need to project. And why is this important? It's because when a visitor comes to your congregation and they want to start talking about how do I engage in stewardship, when average giving is the answer that we have, it might be a smaller amount or an arbitrary amount. They might be able to give much more than our average gift size, but because they believe that's what everyone else is doing, they'll make their gift that way. So when we talk about average gift size, let's just think about what we're really doing. And so we have an idea. We want to talk about the median rather than the average. Here's some data from a real church. My friend, who is the rector of Church of the Advent in Sunset West, Arizona, uh, volunteered his data for us to take a look at and analyze in real terms. Before I get into that, Phoebe, you just asked a really important question. I'm going to circle back to it. Please comment, you say, on the liturgical loss when people give online, other ways to honor the plate. Phoebe, you and I had a great conversation about this on the phone in December. So thanks for asking this live, because it's really beautiful. And you're right. When people make a gift online, it's beautiful for the budget and great for the church. But that act of putting something in a plate and the vision of seeing that plate go forward and be celebrated and blessed at the altar is missing. So I like how you frame it, the liturgical loss of giving online. So how do we creatively address that? I've seen lots and lots of methods in Episcopal churches since the pandemic, since we stopped even passing a plate in some places. And how do we continue to make the offertory, that moment when we bring all of ourselves to the altar and all of the gifts that we have? It's a really powerful moment. I know that there are other powerful moments in our liturgy, but as a stewardship guy, that moment of bringing our gifts and placing them on the altar to be blessed, shared, broken, and distributed to a world in need is really, really dramatic and really important. So if you're not passing a plate, if you're not putting anything in a plate because it's zipping out of your checking account automatically, how do you respond? Well, so I've seen a few things. When the plate comes forward, I've seen the celebrant just simply lift the plate and acknowledge that there are online gifts included in this, people who have made pledges and gifts online, and they are a part of what's being lifted up. My congregation has these little laminated cards in the pew rack, in the pews, that you can, there's a QR code, a quick read code on one side that connects right to our giving portal. So you can take out your phone and make a gift, and then you can put this little card in the plate when it comes by and say, I've participated. My gift is now being blessed along with all the others. Or if you make an online gift and you just want to, you like the action of putting something in a plate, these pledge cards or these little laminated cards, you know, we collect them at the end and put them back out in the pews for next Sunday. They're great. I've also seen congregations that create little metal tokens, and you can put something on it, you know, my pledge, or I gave my gift online. So that liturgical loss is something we should really think about. We should create a way for people to participate in the offertory and make certain that they understand that their gifts too are gathered, blessed, broken, and shared, just like the bread and the wine, just like the other gifts that come to the altar. This is our Eucharistic, our sacramental theology, and our contribution to the gospel message is one of those really important ways. Thank you for asking that question live. It's really beautiful. All right, so let's talk about some data, some numbers. Let's put on our math hats, take a sip of coffee, and remember that there's a difference between average gift size and median gift size. Average takes all the gifts, totals them up, and divides them by the number of gifts that were made. It's a fine way of looking at things, but it's very different from the median gift, which says, what is the gift right in the middle of our giving pattern? And so you can see it helps with those outliers. So this church has a larger average gift size than it has a median gift size. So to me, what it says is, this is really where people are giving in the middle. We must have some really large gifts. We have some small gifts, and the middle is where people are finding their their contribution relationship with the church, their stewardship relationship. So here's this church's data as it's spelled out with their 110 households. And what the rector there does is they create a pyramid. We're going to show you the pyramid next. They create levels of giving. The highest 20%, and the middle 60%, and the base 20%, the gifts that we rely on in our congregation. So you can see that this congregation raises a whole lot, 46% of its budget from 20% of the gifts, from 20% of the members. And that the average and median gift size of those largest gifts is really big. It's a really important contribution model for this congregation. And then as is the case in most of our economics, it's the middle that supports the congregation, without whose gifts we wouldn't have the success that we have. So take a look at that middle. It's also where the most movement can happen, because people who can make gifts at the highest level do that unless they leave or pass on. But it's the middle where people usually have the most flexibility. And this is where people can say, you know what, I want to step up my giving, and I can do it. And so there's often movement in that middle group. And then the base, we never want to forget the widow's mite or the smallest gifts that make up our campaign, because even though they only make up 4% of this church's campaign, for example, they're really important gifts. There are enough of them, 22 households making these small gifts, that you want them to feel included and like their gifts matter. This also happens to be Sun City West, by the way, a retirement community. And so it's a church located in a 55 and over living community. And so we have a lot of people living on retirement assets that are a part of this data. And this shows us the broad spectrum of that, and really honoring people who are living diligently on their fixed assets and can't make a larger gift. We want to make sure that they feel that their gift is really important. So here's how that looks when we put it into a pretty pyramid and create a structure that people can use in reporting. So when we do that, we have this way of being able to show, look at the top. Yeah, a lot of our giving comes from that. But then we can put ourselves in where does my gift fall? And we see it here put out with the numbers. So take a look at this. Take a look at this model and these materials. You can download them as a part of, in our resource library, we have an article on evaluating your pledge form or your pledge campaigns, and it has templates that you can download. Now, Mary Jane, if you're on the call, I know that you took this idea and you had to create some new tools, because we didn't have every tool that you needed at TENS. Do you want to tell us what you did with your pyramid and how you made some new, I think you had 5 areas, didn't you?
Hi there. Yes, would that be the step document? I'm not
Was
sure.
it steps or was it the pyramid that you did?
Mike, our Fitzpatrick, our treasurer, is on the call, and I'll ask him to help me.
All right.
We did use that, and we reconfigured it, putting, of course, our. I wish I could put it on the screen. We did that and included that proportionate giving card in our, just as it was done. I cannot say enough about all the resources and your personal, that I could contact you, and just elevated our campaign hugely. Also, we saw I'll just bring this up and you can talk about it later, the brochure, the color brochure that you had an example of. I was thinking we just built it from scratch, really, with our local print shop, and included our people, and it was just inspiring. and I think it made a big difference. So, yes, if Mike can help us with the step document or the proportionate giving, I'll let him do that. But thank you for calling on me.
Thanks, Mary Jane.
Yeah, I don't remember doing a pyramid per se, but we did this exact same step chart
Tool.
that
Mhm.
Joe
Great.
and
I don't,
at
it
our
may be somebody else. I'm not sure. Because we did
Okay.
not do a pyramid as such.
All right. All right.
Thank you, though.
Thank you. The steps document, I find in either way, the pyramid or the steps, I find them really useful because you place yourself. When you see something like that in a document, you say, where am I giving? This steps document it's even more broken down than a pyramid because you can have as many steps as you want. Pyramid levels start to get a little too crazy. But you can see for this congregation, this is a different congregation that shared its data for the steps tool. They have a average gift size, they have a median gift size that's really important. And you can see exactly that they have three households that are making these really extraordinary gifts to their congregation and what impact that has. And so if we imagine those top two levels at 10,000 and above, those 8 households that are giving such incredible gifts to this congregation, if they were to stop making their gift or being unable to make their gift or pass on or move away or whatever, who's going to step up? Who's going to fill in the next place? Or that middle, all those gifts that are in the middle of this document that make up the bulk of this congregation's giving, who can move from 2,500 up into the 5,000 range, somewhere in there? Those are tools that help people understand how to be more inspirational, more generous with their giving, and just to see where they are. We also look at our neighbors, right? We'll look at the people on either side of me and how are they giving, and how is each gift really important to us. So between the pyramid and the steps, I hope that gives you a couple of tools to use in your stewardship. I put this right into an appeal. I put it maybe on the website so people can access it when they're thinking about making their gifts. If you do, it can be one of those things that is in your stewardship packet. Here's what people, or your newcomers packet too. Here's what people give in our congregation and how their gift shakes out. More information is more information. Proportional giving is another way to help people understand the power of their gift. And again, when we pick a number, I'm going to give $2,500 to the church this year. That seems like a good number, means something to me. It's something I'll notice, but it's not going to break my bank maybe. And so I decided that's my gift. Well, next year, what am I going to give? And if it's 2,500 again, I'm starting to fall into that stagnant plateauing place. So a congregation that has implemented proportional giving asks people to prayerfully consider, what am I going to lay aside? What am I going to dedicate to the church? What of my weekly or monthly or annual income am I going to say, this is the church's? I am giving this. It's a first fruit mentality. And I know we talk a lot about tithe in church. I will also let you know that the average gift size for Americans for the Episcopal Church is around 2 and 2.5%. It doesn't vary much. 2 to 2.5% of their disposable income, their givable money, is what they end up giving to church. And that's not a lot, right? So it doesn't change much. When we ask people to adopt a percentage to become proportional givers, then as their income changes, they can say, well, I did get a raise. And so if I'm giving 6%, the church gets a raise too. And that's how we begin thinking about, it's a different relationship with our giving than picking a number. This is a different way to do it. So having a proportional giving table, something like this as a part of your materials, helps people see that there are other ways to make that decision. One day, and I hope it's this year, we're going to get together a series of meditations and prayers on generosity to include in our stewardship packets and stewardship material, because what you want is for people to stop before they make their gift and to really pray about it and think about it. What do I want to give to the church this year? Where do I want this money to go? And how do I want to do this? Proportional giving is one of those ways that we can slow it down and ask people to think intentionally about it. So Mary Jane mentions that they swapped or they changed the weekly income to monthly income. Most people think about their giving in that way, or their access to funds in that way. Totally makes sense. So having a chart like that is great. Do what you will with it. That's really important. So and we also realize that it ends at $150,000, which might not be necessary or might not be sufficient for American salaries these days. Perhaps it's time to add a few more rows at the bottom so that we can help our very capacious people understand what their percentages can be as easily as everyone else. So we talked a lot about numbers, but church isn't just about numbers, and stewardship isn't just about money. It's also about connection, relationship, storytelling. We want people to tell us how they felt during the campaign. Whoops, I went too far. So ask some questions. Did we tell you enough about what we're raising money for? Was it the right tone of voice? Did we make you feel inspired, or did we make you feel guilty? Did you give because of the Bible, or did you give because of the budget? Like, how did you make your decision? Ask some questions in the follow-up. Maybe pick a couple of people who made gifts this year, maybe a new gift, maybe someone who increased, maybe someone who decreased. Do a little questioning. Why did you do what you did? And we're just trying to gather some data here about how people feel about stewardship, because that's going to help us know where we need to focus next year. Was there any fun? Stewardship campaigns, and I've been in churches that do them this way. Sometimes they just kind of are like, well, it's that time of year again, and we got to raise money, and then we'll get back to what we really like to do, which is planning the Christmas pageant or whatever, right? So like, if we don't approach that stewardship is also fun and an opportunity for people to get together, then we're setting a message right up front that this is, you can skip the month of October and just come back in Advent. We don't want that message to people. We want people to know that this is a really important part of church and that we can have fun with it. My congregation has a big stewardship dinner, and it's like people look forward to it because it's fun. We eat really good food, we laugh a lot, and we tell stories, and then we celebrate where we're at with the campaign. It usually happens at like the week before it's about to finish or something like that. So we can have this real moment of celebration. We call it the Great Thanksgiving, and it's usually turkey themed, but we have a good time. And whatever you do to celebrate, to put some joy and fun into your campaign, make sure that there's a party. You also want to know, like, did you get bored? Did we hammer this too hard? Was it the right length of time? Did you feel rushed to make your gift? All of a sudden it's the due date, or did you feel like it was going on Sunday after Sunday? How did you feel about how we ran the program? Because next year we have choices to make and we can do things differently. And I think this is the most important question. Did you have a sense when someone talked to you about making a gift, or when you got the materials, or when you heard the pitch, you actually knew what was needed, what your gift would do, how much the church was asking from you. Was there a sense of that, or was it just give your best gift? And I think it's really helpful when we let people know what we need the money for, what's expected. We're anticipating needing this much money next year, and so we really hope that our stewardship comes in at this someplace to have some kind of a goal. So make certain that we do that, and make certain that the focus is on the gospel, on our mission, not just about the budget. I get lots of letters every year. People send me their stewardship letter and say, would you kind of red pen this for me? And every year there's at least one that talks about like keeping the lights on, or office supplies, utilities. Those are things that our budgets support, and obviously we need all of those things to make a church run. But it might not be the thing that we need to put in our stewardship letter. Our stewardship letter is about the people that we serve and the way we serve them and our approach to ministry. So make certain that we're sending the right message. When we understand the feelings of our campaigns, we can really see how people are connecting to the mission, changes to make if it felt like a duty rather than an opportunity, and how people have connected with the mission. Did they really get it? Do they know what the mission is? If we didn't succeed in our goals, if we didn't meet our goals, before we just say, well, people must be having a hard time, that might be true. But before we draw that conclusion, try to draw others as well. Say, did we approach this the right way? Are people feeling all right about it? What could we do differently? And gather some data. It's okay to ask questions from folks, or develop a simple survey tool, or just make some phone calls to people who participate in the campaign. I'm sure they will be happy to tell you how they felt about it. Also, let's remember that we want to reflect and create next year's campaign as we're putting this one to bed. So what changes are we going to make? Have a meeting of your stewardship committee in January or February, get together, you know, have a nice little cake or dinner, or however you celebrate, and say, okay, what did we learn? What do we want to change next year? How's next year's campaign going to be different? And what do we want to make sure that we do and don't do? These are the things that resonated. These are the things that didn't. What are the goals that we want to set? So it's not just money, right? It could be about new gifts. It could be about increasing our gifts. It could be about everybody knowing their mission or their giving. How does your committee feel? This is a question to ask before you disband everyone for a while. How do folks feel? Do they still want to do this work? Did they feel beat up? Did they feel energized? That could be that the campaign was really hard if they're feeling not energized, or it could be that you need people who are on your committee who buy in a little bit more to stewardship. Not everybody is a natural fundraiser. It's a calling in our community, and not everybody has to do it. So maybe people didn't feel aligned with it, so they're feeling really tired. Ask those questions of your committee as well. And then what are you called to do? So that's the final reflection question in this. What are you called to do in your life and in your vocation as stewardship? So ask those questions before you sweep up from your party, before you finalize the last thank you note. Follow up with those gifts that haven't come in. Send personal notes, one-on-one phone calls. I know phone calls are hard. We don't answer our phones anymore, but leave those messages. People will respond, I hope. Analyze your trends, make your decisions, and thank everyone who participated. This is the end of your campaign now. Now you might decide you want to keep meeting and form next year's campaign. I know that there are some members, some people on this call who meet very frequently with their stewardship team, and they keep meeting all year round because they learn and they talk and they have a formation experience about that. I want to remind us all that stewardship is pastoral work as well. And so you might find that people were put off or hurt or frustrated by your campaign. And that might make you, who worked on the campaign, feel some kind of way about it. So check in. Either check in with your clergy or check in with folks. If you're feeling that people are a little chilly or distant toward you after working on the campaign, make sure you have that question. You know, was my approach a little too heavy? How are we in relationship with each other? Maybe I get a little passionate about asking for money and forgot to ask you how you were and what was going on with you. So make certain that if there's any injury, you find a way to reconcile. It's also important when people decide not to make a gift that you know why. And maybe this isn't your question to ask, maybe it's for the priest, but you figure that out, who has the best relationship and at what level it's at. But often when people don't make a gift or can't make a gift, there's something else going on. It might be a health related thing, it might be a conflict, it might be something systemic, and you want to make sure that they're tied in with the resources that can help them through whatever situation they're in. Ask some questions about why did you make your gift? What meant the most to you about what our budget supports? Where does your heart lie? Because that's where your passion is. We want to know that. This is a tricky question, but sometimes it's worth asking, what aren't we doing? You'll get a whole bunch of answers perhaps about dream ministries that people want to create, or things that you could be doing better. It could be a helpful or hurtful conversation, but sometimes we need to ask those questions in church. So make sure that there's some time to ask those questions. And this certainly should be at the end of every conversation. How can we help you? And if I'm not the person to tell that to, do you have someone in the congregation who is, the priest or a pastoral member of the pastoral care team or the deacon, someone you're talking with that can support you or connect you, or be there for you if it's not me? I'm willing to walk with you. If you'll have me, maybe there are others you'd rather have walk with you. Let me connect you. That's part of our role as stewardship folks as well. Kelly asks, who should be asking these questions? That's the right question. So it's on the level of what kind of a response people are getting. If you aren't trained in pastoral care, or if you're not clergy, and someone starts saying too much, you might say, you know what, I think that's a conversation. I want to pray with you. I'm here as your friend, but it sounds like there are some things that you might want to talk with the clergy about. How can I help you? Do you want me to make that connection? Are you okay making that connection? But as far as mechanics of the campaigns go, I think it's up to the members, like asking those questions about what did you know, or what did you learn, or how did you feel, or those are great questions for you to have. Frequently, we dump our clergy into, this is going to be a hard conversation, so you have it. When we don't need to, we can solve, lay people can solve a lot of stuff that's going on in our congregations as well, and that's really important to know. So have good boundaries, but engage the conversations. Somebody asks, what type of clergy involvement is expected and helpful? And if I ever planted someone in the audience to ask a question, it's this one. I didn't plant you, so thank you for asking it. But it's really a great question to ask in our campaigns. I think that there is a school of thought among many clergy folks that they don't want to engage stewardship at all. I don't want to talk about money. I'm the priest. People come to me for pastoral care. I don't want to be involved in stewardship. And I think that soundbite is fine and it makes sense when you hear it. But I think that there are some questions. Well, why? Really, what is it? Is that you? Or is that your stuff about money getting in the way of wanting to know about money? And asking clergy to distinguish those two things is really important. There are also, I think, when we're talking about pastoral approaches to stewardship, I think that there are reasons that people increase and decrease or skip out, opt out of giving at all to church that that don't have to do with their personal economics, that have to do with deeper things that are going on in their lives. And that those are absolutely the places where clergy should be involved in their lives. If there's a huge medical thing happening in their family, or a family change going on, or a layoff or something like that, you'd want your clergy to be able to provide pastoral care. That's when I, the person having the stewardship conversation, might say, is it okay if I let our priest know that they should reach out to you, or would you like me to help you with that, or you want to take care of that? Sounds like there's some really big stuff going on, and I'll pray with you and pray for you, but sounds like maybe your priest should be involved. It's also really important that our clergy are involved at the beginning of our stewardship campaigns too. We didn't cover it because we're not talking about the beginning, we're talking about the end, but at the beginning of the campaign, I usually show my list of people I'm going to talk to the clergy and give them an opportunity to say, if there's someone on this list I shouldn't be asking, or if there's something you know that I don't know, just put a line through them or a circle around them, or put some limits on the conversation for me. I don't want to know what's going on with them pastorally if they haven't shared it publicly, but let me know. And because clergy know often what is going on. And when they don't know, I think maybe they should. So it's that sharing of information that's really important. So thank you for asking that question. I think it's really important. Kelly asks, how do we encourage our clergy to engage more in stewardship? I think by reminding them that stewardship is not just about money, it's about relationship and pastoral care, and that lots of stuff is put onto our money that isn't just about economics. We put our hopes and our fears and our dreams and our passions and our marriages and our child raising and their future. We think about all that when we think about our money. And we also have trauma, perhaps, associated with our money. We have needs that we're worried about, or maybe we have guilt about having too much of it and not knowing what to do with it. There are all kinds of things that people have about money that are very much about pastoral issues. So reminding clergy that it's not just looking out at the congregation and seeing dollar signs, but you're seeing human souls trying to connect and be in relationship. And how can you be a part of that? Also, if clergy are completely divorced of knowing about stewardship, they might miss some of those signals that people are sending when they change their pledge. Sometimes people will reduce their pledge before they walk out the door to see if anybody notices them or notices that they're doing it. It's a cry for help in a way. Not saying that that's a really healthy behavior. I wish people would engage that differently, but sometimes we do it through our stewardship. And so if clergy know that Davey used to give this much and is now only doing this, it's an opportunity to have a connection and a conversation. Is everything going all right with you? Is there anything you want to tell me? And so that's really helpful. Thank you for those questions. Wow, here's a question. What if your clergy has stopped pledging? Yeah, well, Well, that's a good one. I hope that hasn't happened. We need to 100% participation in the leadership. For certain, we want 100% participation from everyone, but the leadership of a congregation should be the first gifts in every campaign. When I'm stewardship chair of a place, that's what I ask. Even before the campaign starts, I ask that the vestry, that the stewardship committee, and that the clergy have made their pledges for the next year, and that we can report starting the campaign with X number of gifts in, or dollars raised, or percentage, or whatever you want to say. If clergy has stopped giving, it's time to have a conversation with them about sharing time, talent, and treasure, that all are important. And they might be signaling that they're walking out the door. Maybe they're upset or frustrated. So if your clergy has stopped pledging, there's a problem. And they don't have to make the largest gift. Let's be very clear that there are other people in the congregation who can make larger gifts. They just have to make a gift, and that's really important. It's really important for everyone to feel that they have a stake in the game. Gail asks, how do we approach those who have not pledged but give? I said this a little in the liturgy conversation, the offertory, making sure that everybody feels included, and making sure that you thank everyone. So people have different reasons for not pledging. Lean into it, honor it. We can't force people to fill out paperwork, and in fact, I don't think it does us any good to do that. So if they're giving and they're giving regularly, I would ask the treasurer to make a pattern out of that. So if you know that Davey never fills out pledges but gives about $2,000 a year, I'd put $2,000 in next year's pledge campaign for for Davey's pledge, because you know that he is trying to, he's going to do that because it's a pledge that he makes, whether or not he fills out paperwork. So that's how I would do that. And then I would thank them when that gift comes in. Send them a thank you note like you send everyone else. Kelly asks, how many people do you have on your stewardship committee, and how often does your committee meet? Great question. And you can look in our previous webinars for recruiting and training a stewardship team to get even more information about how to identify and create a team. I think a team, well, first it matters what kind of a campaign you're running. That's the first question. If you're running the kind of campaign that wants to reach every member with an individual conversation, and you have a lot of people to reach, then you need a large team to do that work. So, a single person can really only reach in a month or 6-week period, perhaps 10 people at the most, to have one-on-one conversations. And even that's a stretch with the way people are overcommitted these days. So you might need a really large team. If it's a smaller or a different kind of intensity in your pledge, where you're creating materials and you're doing a party and you're making pitches, I'd say you could get away with a smaller committee, as long as there's enough people so that the people who are there aren't doing all the work. So if there's a party to plan, you need a couple of people who are focused on that. If there are materials to write, you need a couple of people who are doing that, and not everyone. So if a small committee, if your committee is too small, people are going to burn out real fast. So it depends on the approach that you have. I like to think 6 is a beautiful number for a stewardship committee, but I've worked with ones usually that are smaller than that. It all depends on you and how it works. But take a look at that webinar. It asks some good questions and helps you think through some of those questions. Let's see. How do we transition from a successful pledge drive to embrace year-round stewardship for the first time? Oh, Gail, I love you. So great question. When you have really good stewardship and you want to start thinking about year-round giving, you might start thinking about how we form people around the year. I will send you, when I send out the materials, I'll send you a link to our year-round stewardship materials. we have things that fit into the liturgical calendar and to the seasons of the year, and to create a plan that helps people remember throughout every month or liturgical season or whatever, that there are opportunities for stewardship happening, and that we need to think about that. So there are great ways to connect this throughout the year. I worked with one congregation this year that does a rolling stewardship campaign, and I found this fascinating. They taught me a lot, that they don't have an annual campaign that starts in September and ends in November or something like that, but that people in their congregation renew in their birthday month. So every month there's a new group of people renewing their pledges for the year, and they do it as a celebration of their trip around the sun, and they make that commitment to the church. I've been alive for 52 years, and I'm really excited about that, and here's another year of blessing in this community, and now I'm making my gift. I think that's a really interesting approach. It changes the focus from a single event to this recurring relationship between membership and renewal and giving. It's a beautiful cycle. I want to learn more about it so that I can learn how to support them in their ministry. So I think it's really important. But there are so many models of stewardship out there, and finding ways to at least connect the messaging of abundance and generosity and gratitude throughout the year will help. And when I end this, I have a few ways to keep that conversation going throughout the year. Nancy, thank you. We're going to talk about capital campaigns at the board for sure. It's a big deal. A lot of churches want us to do that. And Kelly asks, do I find it worthwhile to analyze individual giving by member over a 5-year period? I think 5 years is about the right amount of time. 3 years might be a little easier. And everything right now, we're still dealing with pandemic numbers. So when you look at 3 and 5 year numbers, you still got the weirdness of 2020 and 2021 in there. But I think having a nice 3 to 5 year spread helps give you an idea of trends. More than that, and it starts just to become too much data to look at for a regular person to take a look at. You ask if there's a CRM, constituent relationship model, or a different kind of a database, if you will, that can help create a good reporting structure for that. I think that Tithely and Vanco, Realm, those are some really good ones that a lot of congregations are using. Vanco happens to be a partner of TENS, and so there's a special rate that you can get with Vanco if you go onto our website, and in our membership tab, you can find our Vanco partnership and click the link, and you can get a pretty big discount on it. But a lot of simple CRMs like Vanco, Tithely, and Realm give you the reporting that you need, so you can, with 1 or 2 buttons, analyze trends very easily. If you have a treasurer or an office administrator that knows about data analysis and data entry, that's the thing about a CRM, a database. You have to keep up the data because reporting is only as good as the data that goes into it. Great question. So funding is a cycle. The campaign never ends. It just changes its focus. So when we're not actively raising money, we're reflecting and learning. We're planning for the next year. We're recruiting the team, and we're doing formation in our congregations so that we can create generous members. Doesn't mean we always have to be talking about money. There's lots of language about stewardship that's not money focused. It's about connection and storytelling and mission adoption, gratitude, generosity, abundance, the opposite of scarcity. When we think about formation tools, books, lectures, prayer groups, that can meet and talk about these things throughout the year, we're underscoring the importance of stewardship with those activities throughout the year. You want to be a part of the goal setting for next year. Meet with, after you've met, make a report to the congregation in the annual meeting about what you learned and what you did, and report to the vestry. Make sure that they invite you sometime in the early part of the year to learn from you. What did we do in stewardship? What did we learn? They want to hear those lessons too, because maybe it'll inform their work. When you set goals, and the stewardship committee should be a part of it. So I say this as an important call to, or a rally to our stewardship people out there. Don't just let them call you when it's time to run a campaign. You should be a part of the goal setting too. As a stewardship campaign member, I really don't like it when the vestry says, this is your goal, raise it. I really like to participate in the goal setting and have conversations. This is what we've learned. This is what we can expect. This is what we think we can do. And then be a part of that conversation. Don't let any vestry muscle you around. You have lessons to learn and joy to spread, and information to share with the vestry that it can help in goal setting. So be a part of that and learn how to be a part of that. You can also have soft goals, things that aren't just about money. I say soft as in meaning in some light that they don't matter as much, but that's completely not the case. It is so important for us to increase our membership, and that's a goal of a stewardship committee as well, to increase mission adoption, that people understand why they're giving and what they're giving it for. Those are great things that a stewardship committee can set as a goal as well, not just money raised. I think it's really important to do some work throughout the year on our spiritual gifts. Is there a way that we can connect the spiritual needs of our congregation with our opinions on attitudes on abundance and scarcity and generosity? I'm going to go through a couple of books and ideas, but there are lots more. I have two book studies that I would recommend. One of them is the beautiful work of Henry Nouwen, The Spirituality of Fundraising. This book is so easy to run in a book study throughout the year. You can gather people together. You can read the book in about 20 minutes. It's inexpensive from Amazon, and I really recommend it as a great starting place to help people understand that fundraising is one of those key practices in creating a spiritual, whole, healthy community. And if you have clergy that haven't adopted the fact that stewardship is more than begging for money, then it's really important for them to understand their role as an ambassador for the budget and helping people make connections with their money and their meaning, that's a part of the work of leading a congregation as well. So this is a great book. And Charles, I know you're on our call. I would love to see your face and hear your voice if you'd like to come off mute and tell us a little bit about how your book could be used as a stewardship book study offering. Are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Charles. Happy New Year.
Thank you. First, when you were talking about having something to put in the offering plate, electronic giving, this is what we have at the cathedral. And I'm amazed how many people, many older people, are giving this way. So that's very, very important. The Dean mentions, for those who are giving electronically, please take the coupon and put it in the plate. They recycle them each week. My book is based on the fact that we need to talk about mission to congregations all the time. No one ever left the church because they felt thanked and appreciated. It's a way of thanking people for their giving and connecting it to the mission of the church. It can be one Sunday the choir, another Sunday the church school they're supporting. It can be a mission work they're doing. It could be a food pantry. All the different, excuse me, all the different ways that people are contributing, making the church work. And I believe that clergy should be doing this. Lay people can be doing it. So it's all year they're learning about the good things that are happening. And my book describes that, how that happens. Now, why don't I say, excuse me, my throat bothered me. The 6 key words in stewardship are thank you, thank you, thank you. That's connecting in relationships. And our bishop has adopted this now, the building of relationships. People don't give to programs, they give to people. Would anybody here in this call give to somebody you didn't trust or you didn't care about? It's a matter of listening to people, what they care about, and then approaching them in a way that it makes a difference. Also, one thing I did in my ministry is every quarter our congregation sent out statements, giving statements. I went over them ahead of time. And for people who's dropped off giving, I never called up and said, I understand you're not paying your pledge. No, I called up and said, how are things going? Now I'd find out people are laid off work, people were sick, the mother was sick, they're not attending church right now, they're with her every Sunday. And I could offer them prayers. And if they were complaining against me, I could deal with it now rather than waiting to the next stewardship campaign.
Yep. Wow. Thank you for sharing that wisdom with us. Thank you for your decades of beautiful service to the church and helping us be better fundraisers, and to remember that thanking folks is what it's all about. Your book's available on Amazon, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Great. So take a look for it and connect with it. Charles, thank you so much for your ministry, and thanks for being a part of today's call. There was a request for you to hold your card back up, that giving card. Hold it up to the camera and show both sides. All right. Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. That was great. A couple more resources to share with you before we take any last questions and finish up today. As Charles mentioned, letting people know throughout the year where they stand in their stewardship with the promise they made, with the money that's been collected, is a really important transparency tool. We want people to remember that they made a gift, remember that the church is collecting it and noticing it and using it for the purposes that it's intended for. So make sure there's some kind of mid-year check-in. If you only get it once a year, it should be in the middle of the year at least, where you send out pledge statements. I know depending on the size of your congregation and how busy your treasurer is with other things, this is a hard lift for some folks. But make sure there's at least one opportunity throughout the year that you're communicating where folks are with their pledges and telling people where the budget is as well. They might not go to the vestry meeting. They may not look on the bulletin board in which the vestry notes are kept. So remind them that the budget is still happening, that we're spending it, that we're raising the money, and that the promises we talked about at the annual meeting, we're still doing. That's part of being transparent and accountable leaders in the church. Storytelling is a beautiful tool, and stewardship is about storytelling, because no one just says, here's my gift, thank you. They often will tell you a little bit more about why it's important, what they're doing, what they love about the church. Sometimes you can get a whole bunch of information from people. Well, collect that information, or at least find a way to share it more, because it's really important when people understand each other's motivations and also what's going on with them. We engage in that storytelling. There are in our resource library, there are a number of storytelling tools. Take a look through them, and I'll link them to you in the materials I send later. Finally, preach a sermon in July on stewardship that doesn't end with, and you can pick up your pledge forms in the back of the church. Make sure that you connect the gospel to our money at least once a year outside of the stewardship season. Pens offers seasonal reflections. So every church season, there are reflections that make the theological connection between that part of the church year and our money and meaning. So download those. They're up and available already, and you can get started for Lent, for Easter, for Pentecost. download those and use them in Bible studies and preaching and teaching tools, and any number of other ways. Somebody asks, are vestry meetings open to the parish to attend? Well, in mine they are. I think they're usually open meetings, but check with your vestry. I think you have a right to be there, unless your bylaws say other, but you know, I don't know why you'd want to go to a vestry meeting if you're not on it. But maybe you do. And we always have, like, a couple times a year, we have folks drop into ours. Ours are on Zoom, and so people just grab the link and come on. So that's great. Victoria, you ask about CRM options. I will send you a link to our webinar on online giving platforms and CRM tools, so we can do that. Mary Jane, I love it. So where can you find the evaluation tools in our, they are on our website in the resource library. There's a article on evaluating your pledge campaign, and I will send that link out to you later today. Finally, I want to end with our theme for 2024. It's Walk in Love. And so we're coming out of our year of being rooted in abundance, and we're now focused on the journey that we take together and walking in love. And when we do that, there's clarity, there's purpose, there's commitment and connection. And we do that. You can't walk in love alone. You do that in community, and you do that in communion with each other and with all that is. And so as we think of our journey of faith and love in our communities, think about that. And that's our stewardship campaign theme for 2024 to 2024's work. So we'll be focused on that this year. We'll be walking in love. We have just a couple minutes left to share any questions or that you might have. That chat has been really active. I really appreciate that. But if there's anything else you'd like to mention, or now's your time. Raise your hand and come off mute, and love to hear from you. Yeah, Charles. There you go.
For many years, I was stewardship officer here in the Diocese of Maryland, and I took all the new clergy out for lunch. And what I would share with them is, one, some of your best givers are going to die, no matter how good a pastor you are. Two, some good givers are going to move away. I had a wonderful senior warden take a new position at Bellevue Hospital in New York City. And three, some people are going to get upset. Maybe somebody took their parking space, took their seat in church, or they heard a sermon they didn't like. So the key thing for all stewardship committees is to be involved in evangelism. And we used to have every stewardship conference we had an hour devoted to evangelism. Now, I'd love to see you all develop in TENS a program on evangelism-stewardship, because I learned under Davy Crockett not to go on the wild frontier, but the county ordinary in the Diocese of Weston, Massachusetts, that he wrote a book called The Three-Sided Coin, my first stewardship book ever. And he said one side was stewardship, the other side of the coin was evangelism, and it was surrounded by education. So I'd love to see a webinar based on that.
Great, thank you for that. And we will, I think evangelism is right up with where we want to be too. I see a couple of hands up, and so Kelly, I want to call on you first. Come on off.
Hello.
There you go.
Hi. I just had a quick question. I'd used some of the materials from last year, and I noticed there was a password to get to some of the materials. Is there a new password for this year's materials, or?
There will be. I've just put the password into the chat. It's still Jeremiah 17:8 until February, when we'll change it. We give dioceses a whole month to renew their membership before we yank the password away from them. So you can still use Jeremiah 17:8. Right now, what you have available is everything that we've done before in stewardship campaigns, and you have the Walk in Love materials, the seasonal reflections, we'll update the stewardship campaign info that usually comes in around May, so that you can run your fall campaigns. So there you go. We'll let you know when we change the password, and we'll let you know what it is. I
Awesome,
bet
thank
you
you.
can I bet you can already guess what it might be. We
Yeah.
usually use the scripture that we are talking about. But anyway, we'll let you know when it changes. Thanks for your question, Kelly. Gail, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all the work that we put in, because we used all your material. And we were at a stage where we had a lot of our major givers move away. We were very nervous that if, we didn't raise enough funding, we would not be able to call a new music director. And I am just happy to report this morning that we, in fact, not only made our goal, but we made about 20,000 over that. So, I just say that to let you know that it works. And we're big believers now in tens.
I love that. Thank you. We do this for stories like that. We do this to help our congregations who are really trying to approach stewardship in a different way. I love hearing that story and that success. And for you, congratulations for surpassing your goal and being able to fund the important parts of your budget.
And I think what I learned out of that is, a simple thing, we put up the church steeple, as the visual for meeting our goals. So every week, we filled it in and it was interesting how people suddenly cottoned onto that. So how do we make that top? Can I wait and see how things are going and then make my gift at the end? Whatever floats your boat. And so eventually it got to be, I think what it made me realize is everybody participates at a different point and at a different level and in what touches their own individual heart.
I like that. Whatever floats your boat, however you want to make your gift, however you want to engage, we'll find a way to use it. And that's what God does with our gifts, right? However you choose to share your talent with the world, God finds a way for you to do that. And so does our church with your contribution. I love that story. Thank you. And thank you all. Well, friends, it is our time, and I loved these last 90 minutes with you, and I really appreciate your questions all throughout the chat as well. There were some great pieces in the chat. They're going to be recorded along with the recording. And so I'll send all that information out to you later. I really appreciate your time. And thank you again for your work. Stewardship is not easy. It's sometimes thankless. I want to thank you and let you know that the church needs you and your ministry is completely valued and absolutely necessary. So thank you for doing what you do. I will fly off to Memphis next week with our board, thinking about this conversation and others. We really hope to deliver some great things in the year to come. And pray for us as the 12 of us meet in Memphis and figure out a new plan and some great webinars for y'all. Thanks, friends. Have a good Saturday.